everybody. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Mondays with my co-host, Aaron West. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Got a great show for you guys today. We got a lot of great questions. We realized the last couple of weeks we've been answering some questions which are a little bit higher level, and we got a lot of questions in asking us questions about the responses we gave. So we want to clear up some of those and just get hit on some basic things today, as well as answer any of your questions. So if you're here, and you could always put a comment in the right below the video, and we'd be happy to answer it live while we're live. If not, we'll get to it later if you ask it and we don't get to it during the broadcast. But we've got some questions queued up. But with that, I want to welcome Ronnie to the Marketing Mondays podcast.
Hello, happy Monday. It's been a crazy day, obviously. Just getting a bunch of stuff going on. One thing I can say, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are watching. It's fantasy football season. I had my first draft last night, so I'm sure that's something that's kind of be scattered with a lot of different people over the next few days before the season kicks off. So
I am a huge football fan, but I have to admit that I've never once played. I have not done 1 year of fantasy football, and I don't know why. It's not like I have anything against it. I just have never done it, and I'm a huge football fan. So I don't, I don't even understand it. Now I feel like I've missed the boat to such a degree that I wouldn't even know how to do it if I wanted to get involved in the league. So
it's easy enough. You're a smart guy. I think you could figure it out. Now this is 23rd or 24th year I've been playing since mid to late 90s. So yeah, it's kind of just the thing to do now when it comes around. So I hope everybody out there has a quality fantasy football draft if they're out there doing it.
Cool. Well, with that, I know we want to keep these things to a half an hour, and we've got a lot to get to today. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I know there's a lot of different things going on. I'm hearing from a lot of different people out there about, I wouldn't say that business is slowing down, but I feel like people feel that, with back to school and everything like that, that there's a little bit of a lull. So I know people are hopefully going to find some good information that we're going to share today and kind of kick their marketing back up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start off with one. It's one of those things I've kind of noticed a lot of different reviews that are out there. And somebody wrote in, I have mostly great reviews on Yelp, Facebook, and Google, but I've received some 1-star feedback or with some negative feedback. I want to defend myself, but not really sure what to do. How should I respond to negative criticism online?
That's a great question. I think people's natural tendency is to get defensive and to post a reply back that would defend their position, maybe justify if something that some person is saying is there's some truth to it. They may want to justify why it happened that way and things like that. I tend to think the best way when people read reviews, a lot of times, I don't know if everybody's like this, but let's say somebody's got 300 5-star reviews and they've got a couple 1-star reviews. I'm actually pretty curious to read what the 1-star review is sometimes. Like I want to see what exactly happened. So I view those reviews sometimes as being an opportunity for you to show people that are reading the reviews what kind of company you actually are running and to demonstrate the quality of service you bring. So my advice in those situations, although you might have to do it through gritted teeth a little bit, is to say, it's just that I'm just riffing on this, but say, we're sorry that you had a bad experience. We strive to, make sure all of our customers are satisfied. We apologize that doesn't seem like that we hit the mark with you. We'd love to connect with you offline to figure out what we can do to make this situation better. I think that accomplishes a couple different things. One, I think it accomplishes the fact that if that person has a justifiable or an unjustifiable grief, maybe you could take that offline and maybe figure out a way to make that person happy. But maybe more importantly is you've demonstrated to everybody that's reading that review that you actually care and that you're willing to try to come up with a reasonable resolution to make sure that they're happy. And I think sometimes the way a company deals with a bad review says more about the company than the way they deal with the 250 5-star reviews. It's easy to get on a 5-star review and say, thanks for the feedback and your business. We appreciate you. It's a lot harder when somebody has been a jerk or whatever and posted something to, posted something to your reviews that is not exactly in alignment with maybe the truth or how things played out, and to bite your tongue and still respond in a positive way, I think says a lot about your company, and it's going to actually yield you benefits in the future, even if that 1-star review stands, because people are going to see that you're a company committed to good customer service.
Yeah, no, it's funny because right before this comment came in, my wife had me go take our dog to the groomer, and she was just like, hey, kind of give it a once over, kind of check them out and see what you think. And it was one of those things. I went on Yelp and kind of went through, and I did exactly what you said. I went immediately to the 1-star reviews just to see, like, people are going to have glowing comments about certain places. I was just like, let me see what some of the negative feedback is and how do they respond to it. And at least for me, it was the couple that I read. There was one that was a really long response, but it gave me definitely an idea. Like, the person defended themselves, seemed to be cordial for the most part in the response. Like, it wasn't I don't know what you're talking about, you're an idiot. It was, no, this happened, and kind of explained, at least to me as a new customer, like, the situation, because I think that's what's the most important thing is anybody that's going to read those reviews, like, could be a potential customer. And it's like, how are you going to treat me if I have an issue with something, and how is this all going to go if there is a problem that I foresee, especially like with an animal or your kids. Those are going to be reviews that you definitely, it's kind of out of your hands, and you want to make sure that they're taken care of. So it's a little bit different if it's like an auto tint. Obviously it's like, oh, you can kind of replace this, but if something happens to somebody that you love, like, that's a little bit different. So it's one of those things, like making sure that I felt comfortable reading a negative review. And for me personally, I would say leave that up for sure, just because it's something that I want to see what the issue was and how you responded to it. And that's just one of those things, like, if you get negative reviews, sometimes it's okay as long as you respond properly. And I think that's the
Amen.
key.
Amen. I think you're exactly right. In fact, the only time I would say we've often had clients reach out to me and say, hey, we got a 1-star review, and it's kind of, it's kind of BS, or even in a situation where we think it's a competitor and we don't even have any record that we ever did business with this person or anything like that. In those situations where you feel like it's a fraudulent review, or it's somebody just trying to essentially smear your name, there is a mechanism on most of the platforms you can go through to dispute the review and say, hey, we have no record we ever did business with this person. And oftentimes, if you go through that process, you could potentially get the review removed. Now, obviously, Google or Yelp or any of them are going to do their due diligence, because they want to make sure you're just not trying to whitewash any bad review that you get. But in general, if it's a legitimate review, but the person's just upset, I agree with you. Responding to it in a cordial, polite, professional way, trying to take the conversation offline, but also demonstrate to anybody that's reading it that you're willing to seek a resolution that's going to make everybody happy, I think speaks volumes about your company. If it is a completely illegitimate review, and it's a fake review, or you don't have any record that you even ever dealt with a person, I would submit to try to get it reviewed or removed, because I think in those situations, it's hard to respond and say something when you're like, we never even did business with this person, so.
Yeah, exactly. So another one that came in, it's again, obviously reviews can kind of be anything, but this one's a little bit more. We've talked a lot about SEO, and so I think a lot of people that might be a little worried. Actually, let me just read the question. I've heard you and many other marketers discussing SEO and SEM. I sort of understand what it means, but not entirely. I feel ashamed to ask, but could you explain what SEO is and how it can affect my business? And I feel for you. I was like this maybe a year ago until I started watching a lot of your videos. So a lot of these questions, it's okay if you feel like you said, if you're ashamed, please respond to us, send us a message, and we can try to answer it for you.
First of all, with regard to marketing, there are no bad questions. I mean, there's a lot of acronyms and things like that that are thrown around like SEO that people in the industry, we assume everybody understands what SEO or SEM or things like that are. But the reality is a lot of times people don't understand what they are, but they don't want to ask the question. I can almost guarantee you, I appreciate that question coming in because I can almost guarantee you for every person that does understand what all this stuff is, there's people out there that don't, and I guarantee you asking this is going to help maybe dozens of other people that don't know, but they're like they don't want to spend the time, they don't want to ask, they're afraid to ask, they don't want to look dumb, whatever. So first of all, there is no dumb questions. Second of all, we're just going to start really basic. So SEO, the acronym SEO stands for search engine optimization. SEM, which you also sometimes see, is search engine marketing. So let's break down exactly what those things are. So search engine optimization refers to the things that you would do in, on, and around your website to optimize it such that when somebody searches for relevant search terms or key phrases or whatever, that your website is populated in the search results. And ideally, the higher, the better. If you show up number one, that's the best, and down from there. But the higher, the better. So SEO, all that refers to is all the things that you may do to try to make that happen, to come up high in the search results. That entails the content on your website, the way your website is structured, how there's keywords on your website, how your images are optimized. All those different things can come into play when Google crawls your website, which is another term I'll just explain real quick. The way Google determines which websites to populate is they actually crawl your website, i.e. they read what's on your website, and they try to connect the dots. So when somebody searches for a particular thing, they will try to populate the results with websites that they feel, based on what their algorithm shows, are going to give the person searching the results they're looking for. So all the different things you would want to do on your website play into search engine optimization, as well as what you might not think is user experience. So the speed of your website, how easily your site's navigated. If somebody goes to your homepage and leaves from your homepage without visiting any other pages, that's considered a bounce. So Google tracks that. So what that is an indication of potentially is that the person that they sent to your website didn't find what they were looking for, so they left. So Google's looking at all these things to try to populate the best results for the person that's searching on Google. That's their intention. You doing all the things on your website, in and around your website, to paint the best picture for Google so that they put you into those search results more often than not, is what would be called SEO. So again, I hate to give such a lengthy description, but I want to make sure I'm thorough on it. SEM would be, there's another way you can get to the top of search results, and that's with something called like Google AdWords or search engine marketing. So that means you would actually go in and you would create ads, and you would define the keywords or key phrases that you want to come up for, and you would pay money to come up as a sponsored post at the top of those results. So accomplishing much the same thing as SEO, but you're actually paying for it. So it's search engine marketing. That doesn't really have to do anything with what's on your website. You're just paying money to say, I want to be at the top of these search results, so I'm going to pay money to be there. So a combination of SEO and SEM is going to be how your company comes up. It should be noted, too, that localized SEO, Google Business plays a role in that. How your Google Business page is constructed and what's on there plays an impact of how you show up in the map pack. That I also would include as part of SEO as well. So your Google Business page as well. And again, the biggest thing you want to keep in mind when it comes to SEM, a lot of people might think, well, my organic results or my SEO is good enough that I don't need to do marketing. And that's certainly one way to look at it. But you also can look at it by doing marketing like AdWords. You could show up there organically or free. You could also show up there paid, and you could show up in the map pack. So at the top half of the page, you could have 3 listings for your website versus 1. Gives you three times the chances that you may get that click versus another company. Now, I'd be the first to say, if you're dominating the number 1 position in Google ad in the organic results or the regular search results and the map pack, you might be able to get away with not doing a whole lot of SEM because you're already coming up very well on the pages. Where SEM might be a good fit for somebody is if it's a brand new company and Google hasn't had a time to really register their website yet and get them coming up in the search results. You might, for a period of time, use SEM or Google AdWords to be populated until your website has a chance to start populating based on its own merits. So I apologize for the long-winded result, but I wanted to make sure I was thorough about it so people really understood.
No, that makes a lot of sense. The one thing I was going to mention too, I see it a lot on TikTok, because a lot of younger people are using TikTok and some of these other social media things as their search engine. Like instead of going to Google, they're typing into the top, like, how do I do this? Or how do I do different things? So to make sure that if you are doing social media posts, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, making sure that it is search engine optimized for the post, like the text that you're putting in there, you're hitting keywords and you're explaining things, even if it's a longer piece, like have 1 or 2 lines of the sentence that people will see as the feed comes up. But then obviously when you click that more and more text comes down, you can fill that in with optimized keywords and stuff like that so that it does show up in the search within that platform. But as well, even if you're doing it on YouTube, obviously that's Google. So if you're searching on Google and these things come up on your YouTube page, you want to make sure that you're packing it full of key phrases and explaining the specifics of what you're talking about within that post. So just make sure that you kind of, I know this is a lot that we're throwing at you, but it's one of those things where, for me personally, I'm using AI to do a lot of different things. I go through and I read through everything and make sure that this is exactly what I want. But if I want something a little more compact that has better grammar and better sentence structure than what I'm able to do, that's one of the tools that you can use. And instead of sitting there trying to sit at your keyboard and think like, I have no idea how to do any of this stuff, like that's what these tools are used for, to help you be more efficient and save time instead of sitting there typing out 4 or 5 different paragraphs of keywords and explanations when you can have an AI do it, as long as you're proofreading it and making sure that it's exactly what you want to say.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind too, a lot of people don't realize this because they don't think about YouTube this way, but YouTube is the number 2 as far as size search engine in the world. Google's number 1 by a long shot. Google is number 2. A lot of people don't, YouTube is number 2. A lot of people don't think about YouTube as a search engine, but essentially it's a search engine for videos.
Yeah.
That's the result. The results come up in videos. And with smart TVs and things like that now, I feel like the consumption of YouTube videos is going up to a great degree. I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, that a lot of nights, if I get a chance to actually sit down in front of the TV, which doesn't happen that often, but if I do, a lot of times I find out I want to go and watch something exactly what I want to see. So a lot of times I find myself on my smart TV going over to the YouTube channel and just looking up a video that's about exactly what I want to watch and watching that instead of watching Hulu or Netflix or something else. I'm actually on the YouTube. So again, I think YouTube is big. The other thing I would say with real quick about videos, a lot of people don't understand that when you post a video to Facebook, it doesn't automatically give you a title and all those other things. Sure, you can put in a caption of what that video is about, but you should also go in and edit the video, and you could add a title to the video. You could actually add tags to the video about what the video is about and give a lot more context about what that video is going to be about than just the copy that you put in the post. So if you're not taking the time to title your YouTube videos and things of that nature, you're actually probably missing out on some opportunities to get some additional views and things like that, because it doesn't happen automatically. When you go to post a video to YouTube, a lot of time, or Facebook, a lot of times it'll just go straight in. It doesn't let you do a title unless you go to the edit button after the fact.
Yeah. So we'll kind of stick with the content theme. I had another question here. I have heard the term evergreen content mentioned a few times when researching marketing. What does that term refer to? Evergreen trees?
Yeah, like the ones that hang in your car. That's what, the little ones on your rear view mirror. No, evergreen content, it's really simple. I mean, again, I feel like we a lot of times throw nomenclature around that makes it more difficult than it has to be. Evergreen content just means that the content is doesn't have a shelf life, if you will. Like, it's content that is going to be valid and correct today, and it's also going to be valid and correct 3 years from now, maybe 5 years from now. So when somebody refers to something as evergreen, they mean it's not like it's a post that you put out today and then 2 months from now it's dated. That wouldn't be considered evergreen. But certain things, like with regard to let's say, a lot of the people we talk to are in the window film industry. 5 benefits of using a home window film, and you talk about heat rejection, you talk about fade protection, you talk about glare reduction, you talk about potential energy savings, things of that nature. That's going to be true of window film 5 years from now as much as it is now. So that would be something like that. Piece of content is evergreen because there's not information in there that's dated. Now, if you have a post on your website that talks about the window film tax credit that expires next year, that's good information. It's great to have that on your website, but that does have a shelf life. After that expiration date, or after that tax code isn't renewed, that post is no longer usable per se. I mean, it's not evergreen. So there's maybe an example of a post that would be evergreen versus a post that would not be evergreen.
Yeah, to me, it does kind of fall in line with evergreen trees if you think about like the seasons. And I think a lot of times in particular sectors and markets, like you're going to have, whether it's the Christmas season, so you might be pushing out a lot of merchandise that you might have bought, you're overstocked and trying to push out. And so you're going to have different types of posts or stuff like that are going to hit to try to move that stuff. Whereas you may have a steady product that you continue to sell all year round. And so it's a way that you are kind of posting it versus just a specific time frame, whether it's a sale type period, whether you have in the tint industry, if obviously we have ups and downs throughout the season, like you mentioned at the start, where when it's hot out and you have untinted windows, you kind of want to push the product. Whereas if it's going into the fall and winter, you might push paint protection because you want to kind of resist the salt or the rocks and snow that if you are in different climates that would have that. Obviously in the South, it might be a lot less. So it's definitely one of those things to think about, where if it is kind of the seasons, where an evergreen tree is green all year round. And so it's something that you would have up or be able to kind of do the copy, not copy, but something that you could post throughout the year at different times. Because obviously we've talked about before where you can reuse content, and that's okay. As long as you have something that makes sense throughout the year, whether you have a specific product or service that kind of runs all year. When I used to work at a lawn care company, like obviously lawns and fertilizer kind of has a set shelf life, whereas they started moving into duct cleanings and carpet cleanings, which can be done all year round. So it's a lot of different things as far as if you think about it in that way, is a seasonally type of post that you can do or year round.
Yep. No, it makes total sense. I mean, I think the seasonality of like, obviously if you're posting things with a holiday theme towards Thanksgiving, Christmas time, obviously in March, those posts are not going to have as much relevance. I mean, people are going to look at those and feel they're dated. They're not relevant to the fact that it's March. Where other posts, as you mentioned, I mean, you can literally post at any time of the year and it's going to be equally relevant at any time of the year. So, and there's other things too, like you said. I mean, just make sure that when you're creating posts that you are thinking about, you're thinking about like whether it's a piece of evergreen. There's content on your website, and I don't want to get in the weeds. That's called pillar content. And you think about what a pillar is in a building, it's structural. It's like, this is a key element to the structure of this site. So some content that's evergreen would be pillar content, which means that it's literally indicative of, this is what we do. This is what our company's about. This is the products / services we offer. and that's not going to change, or it's not, we're not intending to change it. There's other things you could do a post about, which would be like maybe a holiday promotion or whatever, would not be pillar content. That's a post for a very brief period of time, and then it basically is going to go away. And you might even argue that those posts, that page should be redirected back to another page and maybe just even taken out of being published, because you don't really want somebody 3 years from now finding your page on your website about your 2021 holiday promotion. It's not relevant anymore.
No, agreed. So we'll keep on with content. Someone wrote in, I typically post a photo on social media 1 or 2 times a week, but I would like to try to do a little bit more. How can I use Snapchat or stories on Facebook or Instagram to get more interactions? We kind of touched on this a little bit ago, probably 2 episodes ago, about just different services, but I'll let you kick it off.
Well, go. I mean, I actually am going to turn the tables on you and let you go first here, because I know you do a lot of like micro content creation and taking bigger pieces of content and turning them into micro pieces of content and utilizing them in a variety of different ways. So I'll actually let you go first, and I'll just fill in from there, because I think you're doing this on a daily basis, and I think you've got some good insight on that.
No, for sure. I think, like we had mentioned before, understanding who you're marketing to is key. So if you are a tin shop, it's one of those things, maybe for short content or short-lived content, kind of you behind the scenes kind of things, I think would be really cool, where somebody's, whether you're torching the tint or kind of doing some paint protection. I think if you have somebody else in the shop, or grab a stand and kind of set it up, do a time lapse, it's going to be quick. And just, it's one of these things where you're kind of going around and working it, versus like a promotional post, which is something that would be maybe a little more evergreen. If it's something that you're kind of, you have obviously the price changes, it's going to be different, but if you have certain things that you're doing consistently, and you can show those in a different post. Whereas if you get a cool car that comes in, take a video of it, or at least for me personally, I will sometimes do, like I said, time lapse of me working on something, or motivational posts where I just kind of pop up, and it's something that kind of, hey, if you're looking for these type of things, or people that I follow and they have some decent content that's quick, whether it's in a reel, you can repost into a story. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I know there's a lot of different things, and I'm throwing kind of a whole bunch, but it's understanding that the short-lived is only going to live there for 24 hours, typically, whether it's Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and understanding how you're going to use it. Obviously, like you said before, with some of the stuff, I take these Marketing Mondays, I break it down into smaller segments. I put them on YouTube, as well as YouTube has YouTube Shorts, where if we have a 60-second to a 90-second piece of valuable information I think is useful, I'll put that in a reel. If it's even shorter or smaller, typically on Instagram Reels or Instagram Stories, you got about 15 seconds. With Reels, it's 90 seconds. And then after that, it's typically 3 minutes, or I think like TikTok has now 10 minutes. So it's understanding the size that you have of the content. I think that's key, is knowing, oh, I've got this time lapse, it's 10 seconds. Should I put this as a reel? Like, you can, but I think it would make more sense to put it on as a story, or you can put it on as a reel and then also put it in your story, but then it'll disappear off of there too. So there's a lot of different things with it. I did Snapchat, I think a couple years ago. I haven't really gotten that much into it. I don't know if it's as useful for businesses to be a part of it, just because you can communicate with your clients, and I think that there are plenty of people that are using it. I just think it's easier to have it's the standing profile page for a business, so somebody who has questions that can find a link to their website, whereas Snapchat doesn't really have that. It is a direct link if they want to ask questions. But I think as far as using those short-lived content for a business, if you're doing a personal branding and you're kind of trying to create your own version of yourself, then yeah, Snapchat will work for you. But if you're a business with a brick and mortar, I think and a website, I think you're going to want to utilize some of the Instagram Reels. I think TikTok has stories, Facebook, YouTube Shorts. Those are going to kind of should be your bread and butter, where, like, if you hear Gary Vee saying 8 pieces of content a day, and it's like, I can barely do one or two a week, like this person was mentioning, if you can do maybe one every other day on the story and then kind of see how comfortable you get and then go from there. Because it's like we said last week, it's the more comfortable you get on camera, the more comfortable you get like using your camera and getting out there and filming whatever it might be that works for you. If you have a sudden, like I think it looks cool when I'm putting on the window film, so I'm just going to have somebody come in and video me. And I know there's plenty of people out there that have videographers.
I mean, even showing for stories, like even showing the cars that you have coming in on a given day, or the houses that you're working on, or the commercial days. I think you don't have to like overthink a story. You could just like, post a quick video of the car pulling into the shop and be like, beautiful, BMW coming in the shop or something like that. I think that stories allows you to not overthink it. You could just sort of document your day.
Yeah,
I think that's the way I like to look at kind of documenting your day, versus when you do a post, it's more like, okay, I have an objective I'm trying to reach with this post, or a message I'm trying to get across. A story can just be kind of like documenting the day in and day out of what you're doing.
No, that's
not, and again, not overthinking it, just putting it out there.
Perfectly said. I think I was overthinking the response because there's so much that kind of goes with it, whether I'm doing personal stuff or business stuff. So yes, documenting a post is, in essence, is almost like a mini commercial for your business. That might be way too high end for some people to think like, oh, that I don't want to have to go through all the different stuff for that. But there are different apps out there that can kind of create a bunch of stuff for you for that. But like you said, a story should be very simple, and it's only going to be a few seconds, 10 to 15 seconds, as far as, like you said, documenting your day, like a cool car, cool place, cool house, whatever it might be that kind of attract attention, or just maybe some sort of a story or something that you see something happening, and that's, hey, I'm going to take a quick video of this. Whether you're at
waiting in line at Starbucks and being like, man, this line's killing me. I'm just trying to refuel for the next job. Like anything.
Yeah.
So before we go, though, Tyner actually asked, click to call or form fill for Facebook and search. So I think I could, take a crack. I think I understand what you're asking there, Tyner. I would say, depending on the part of the country you're at and depending on which demographic you're trying to reach, certain demographics, I think, would be averse to filling out a form, and certain demos would rather click to call, and some that are completely opposite of that. So this would be a case where I would say it's ideal to do A/B testing if possible. Run something with a click to call and run something with a form fill and see which ones you get the better response with. Because there's certain situations where we run click to call and we get really good response for certain clients. And there's other times we run click to call and don't barely get any results at all. But when we run a traffic ad or whatever to push traffic to a landing page on the website where they fill out a form, we get really good response to that. Form fill on the website or on Facebook could be good as well. I would just say you need to be dedicated to being, for whatever reason, when people are on social media, their expectations are that somebody's on the other side of that screen waiting to respond to them. So when you do a form fill on Facebook, I think people's expectations of a response are in a more timely manner. Where if somebody fills out a form on your website, I think you probably have 24 hours to respond to that and still probably be within the realm of what's reasonable. I feel like when somebody does that on social media specifically, and what you're talking about with Facebook, I think they're expecting a response back way sooner than that. I mean, and I'm talking about maybe within the hour. If you have somebody dedicated that's paying attention to that and can respond, I think form fill on Facebook can work. I also think click to call can work. I would advise doing some testing to see which one is actually working best for you. And on top of that, I would make sure if you're going to do form fill on Facebook and other things like that, especially on social media, or you're going to do a messenger ad where somebody responds by sending you a message, the expectation is that you're going to respond back relatively quickly. And with every half hour, whatever that passes, your chance of closing or converting that goes down dramatically. So I would just say if you're going to do that, be prepared to capitalize on that, because it's not like somebody filling out a form on your website. The expectations are way greater when it happens on social media.
I was going to say too, and with it on social media, make sure that form is much smaller than what it would be on your website. I wouldn't expect, if I put something out that had 6, 7, 8 questions, this should be something like name and then like a blank spot where they can kind of leave whatever they're looking for if you're not doing like a message. If you do more than 3 different spots where they have to fill things out, chances are they're going to move on. So if you can make it quick and concise, I think that's going to make it easier for you to get that response. But then, like you said too, it's you having run different ones for companies, and you get customers that are upset after 3 hours and there's no response. Like, you need to make sure, like, just like you said, it's within minutes that you're responding to that person to ensure, not to ensure, but to give you a better chance of getting that sale.
Yeah, their expectations are just higher. One last thing I'm going to leave you with on this, and hopefully this helps Tyner and other people. There's research out there that you can look into about looking at contact forms that are on websites and everything like that, and doing research into what the ideal number of cells in a contact form is. Like, how many things should you ask somebody to fill out to maximize conversions? And what you find, if you do some research on this, is that most people's contact forms are dramatically too long. The ideal is somewhere between 3 and 5 cells.
Yep.
So you're talking name, phone number, email, and a brief, like, tell us about what your question is or whatever. I think a big mistake a lot of people make, because again, when you're dealing with a customer, you're trying to essentially service them, or basically lean into helping them. A lot of times when somebody has a big form with a bunch of questions and things like that, what you're trying to do is make it easier for you, because you want to have all this information before you even reach out to the client. But that's not what's best for the client. That's what's best for you. So you selfishly are like, if I can make them fill all this out, then that's less that I have to do when I contact them. But what you don't realize is that if you have that many cells, a lot of people are looking at that and they just bounce. They look at that and they're like, I'm not filling out 15 things. So when you're constructing your contact forms or your, things like that, form fill outs, be thinking along the lines of 3 to 5 cells. You're going to do the closing of the sale, if you will, or the conversion once you are interacting with the client. Your only job of that form fill is to tee up the opportunity for you to communicate with the client. You don't need all the answers answered on the form. You're going to hopefully communicate that with the client and get those answers, get the things you need answered. But if you try to make them do all that on the form, you're just going to really dramatically impact in a negative way your conversion rate. So I would advise everybody to rethink exactly how many cells you need them to fill out. Tyner actually says, I switched from asking for a full address to asking for zip code. Yeah, great point. I mean, if you in fact are going to talk to somebody and try to pursue this sale, you've got plenty of time to get their address. You don't need to know their address. A zip code gives you all that you need to know roughly where they're at. Again, just rethink that. I think that's a brilliant thing that Tyner said. A lot of people want address, they want phone numbers, they want, and it's just like, I like to ask, I tell people, if you want to get it to 5 cells, name, phone number, email address, zip code, and preferred way of communication, email, text, or phone call. Some people don't want to be called because they don't want to be disrupted. They want a text or they want an email. So give them a little drop-down menu to select. I'd rather be called. I'd rather be texted. Some people want a phone call. Some people don't want a phone call. So phone number, email, your name, phone number, email, zip code, and preferred method of communication. Boom. That's 5 cells. You're in, you're out, and you're going to be able to probably see your conversion rates or the number of people filling out the forms go way up.
No, definitely. We're a little over, but I think we hit a lot of good topics today. And so, yeah, thank you, Tyner, for the question. That was a good wrap to everything that we've kind of been hitting on today too. So make sure you guys check out all of our YouTube page, our Patric's YouTube page with a lot of stuff. We're going to be switching that up too eventually, as well as Instagram. If you've missed any of this or you want little bite-sized pieces, make sure to go and check all that stuff out.
Excellent. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody. Thanks Tyner for the question. And our intent again is to be back here each Monday at 6 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Pacific time. So if you've got questions, tune in, bring your questions. We'd be happy, just like we did for Tyner tonight, to answer those live on the spot. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a great rest of your week.